Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Oh, do you ever have mornings where it just kind of all of a sudden gets kind of spinny for a second and you think, wait a minute, calm it down? That was this. I misjudged my timing and I looked at the clock and I thought, what? What? And then kind of spun for a second. So, but enough about that. I'm Abby Haggard. Welcome back. This is my office. This is my tiny corner of the world where I look out upon the magnificence and say, how did I get here? Exactly. Because really, that's what we're all thinking about, isn't it? Most of the time. How did I get here? Exactly. So, the conversation I wanted to have today on, by the way, episode 381 of the ABCAST concept. And for those of you just joining us, podcast, ABCAST thing, I want to welcome and oh my gosh, I want to welcome and thank a whole bunch of people on LinkedIn who, excuse me for just a second, would you? They're drilling. Hang on. There we go. You know, they've started to wait. They've actually started to wait until I start doing the videos before they drill. How thoughtful. They miss me. So when I started this whole idea about the videos, the purpose I had in mind was to give people an opportunity to see that I'm back, because I went away for a bit to do some publishing and some writing and other stuff down a slightly different path. I wanted people to say, oh, there she is. Gosh, it's been a while. How are you doing? And to kind of get comfortable again with having me dropping in and popping in all the time, so that we could all get kind of situated in a similar place. Not that we're all getting ready to run a race, but that we gotten out of touch. A lot of people got out of touch with a lot of stuff during COVID. Mine was a little bit longer, but that's sometimes the nature of a transfer for a military kid or a career shift. And so now that I am back in the place that is my zone, my natural habitat, if you like, I thought that I'm back doesn't necessarily mean that everybody else is back. So I thought, I'm going to throw out the first ball. I'm going to say, so this is where I've been and how I've been, and how are you on a scale of 1 to 10, so that we could get back in our old familiar but slightly changed rhythm of knowing each other and hanging out with each other and collaborating together. So episode 381 later, here we are. And I have been doing these podcasts, ABCASTs, twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, Shoes Days and Thor's Days, for over 3 years now, in order to get my sea legs back, to get my showbiz legs back, because everything has changed. Everything changes roughly every 5 years. They say every 7 years, but it's easier to multiply by 5 for me. So roughly every 5 years, we realize that we're doing something different. We realize that there has been an update of some kind in our window. We realize that our operating system has different expectations. And what we forget about that is the ripple effect, the trickle down effect. So when arguably I've been out of the show business aspect of communications and entertainment for as long as I was actually doing television. So it was an away and a back and away. And so where I am now is I'm saying, you know what I have going for me, for us? I have all these years of doing really fun, high energy, colorful, silly, fabulous shows. Tons and tons of memories of those. Why don't I reinvent what that looks and feels like? So thanks to people like Cliff Caporal at Ottawa and Montreal Comic Con, and Lance Morin at FanaticCon Ottawa and Brockville, and Carol and Randy Sauvé at Cape Cornwall, I have given people an opportunity to see not only the scene where they saw me, but behind the scenes, I've given people an opportunity to step into my studio, into my world, into my purpose and my point of view. My This is us. Here we are doing the show together. Because the one thing I know from the first half of it is that audiences and, well, people love to see how it works. People would give anything to know how the magic trick works. That's why they watch so closely. Yeah, rabbit hat, sure, but where were you keeping the rabbit? Sure, you cut her in half, but how did you clean the box? And so all the stuff that we're curious about, I am showing people when I do my events. When somebody pointed out to me, somebody who actually does speakers work said, you know, you need to get in touch with all these speakers agencies because they're falling into a habit of doing the same thing because it works. If it ain't broke, why fix it? And what they need is a shot in the arm. They need you to show up and make them go, what the hell was that? So my first thing a couple of weekends ago was I did a little surprise ABCAST on a Sunday and said, hey, speakers bureaus, hey, speaker spotlight, look at this. What have I done for you lately? Nothing. I'm prepared to, though. And then this last weekend, wow, I did it for event planners because I looked it up and I thought, you know, event planners need a magnet for people to come to the event. They not only need a theme, but they need a focus point, and usually it's a speaker. So why don't I go talk to the event planners and say, listen, thee and me, we've been doing events forever. Let's talk about a different kind of strategy. Let's talk about a fresh way to make people say, ooh, that looks interesting. Let's go to that. Because that's what I do. Slightly different, slightly down a different path, but highly compatible with both those guys. And I have to tell you, yesterday, in the midst of mad, frantic running around, I got a notice from LinkedIn that 1,700 people had watched it. What? 1,700 had watched it? A surprise, no warning ABCAST on a Sunday, 5 minutes long? Well, maybe it was the groups that I targeted. Maybe it was my intention after it. Maybe it was the cumulative effect of the fact that I'm posting every week and I'm posting to LinkedIn and, of course, YouTube and, of course, Instagram and Twitch and naturally Facebook and my Facebook groups that I'm connected to. Maybe this is what they call the tipping point. Maybe people are starting to say, hey, did you see? Hey, did you see? Because I've only done 2 of these Sunday casts, and both of them had really, really good response, really good reactions. And I thought, well, maybe I have to try and figure out how to make that a regular thing. And then I thought, well, maybe sometimes people just love the spontaneity. And then I said, nope, that's the wrong way to look at it. Even I, who talks about this all the time, fell into looking at it from the wrong end of the periscope. So I'm going to talk today about that, about us not realizing the person we're forgetting in the conversation is the other person. A conversation has 2 people, one on either end. And because we are at this end, we naturally think about the topic and the potential probable interest from our point of view. Because we can't be running around and looking at it from the other end. We have to stay on our side. Otherwise, the boat tips over. So the conversation today, I wanted to use a word that makes people blink. And I said, what's your currency? Let's say you're a country. What's your currency? And I'm not talking about the value of the shilling, pound, franc, Deutschmark, dollar, yen. I'm talking about our currency of communication, our currency of connection, the way we value what we value. What do we exchange a duck for? I personally have duck issues from my childhood, so probably the wrong kind of example, but I'll explain in just a second. First of all, let's all do a cheer, whatever it is the beverage is. So, Abby Haggard, former mom, former Care Bears, not actual bears, not a real mom. I don't have children. I had 102 of them, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I'm good. What I did though, as a TV mom, what I did though, as a participant in the creative process, because when I joined the show, there was no mom. I didn't step into somebody else's slippers and put on someone else's apron. I I went out of my way to find that costume. I literally tried that dress on in a store, in a secondhand store, and said, "That's remarkably unfortunate. I'll take it." Then I found the apron. I thought, what are the odds the polka dots are the same size? And then after that, it just kind of grew all organically by itself. Who I was and what I represented was a welcome, silly, lighthearted relief from the everyday for the kids who watch the show and the parents and the caregivers and the pets. I was not your typical mom. Dad was certainly not your typical dad, but I was closer to real. Dad was way off the charts. Dad, all of Les's characters were fabulously bigger than life. Most of mine were bigger, except mom and maybe the nurse. Most most of the things that mom did and said were the product of a woman who was a little overwhelmed and not really entirely paying attention. Meant well, heart of gold, relatively cheerful most of the time because too busy to really focus on anything terrible for long. And so what that gave kids was an opportunity. Good morning, Daniel. Nice to see you. What that gave kids the opportunity to do was picture a life in which that was their mom, that was their crazy world, and those kids were their brothers and sisters and friends. It gave them a place to go and be at a time when far too many of us were latchkey kids. Our parents, all of a sudden, both were working. We needed more money coming in to support the lifestyle that had been affordable 20 years earlier. So in those 5-year increments, nobody had noticed that things were changing. Nobody had thought that the way you raise children was going to change so radically. And Roger Price, God bless that man, said, let's look at television from the child's point of view. Let's not look at children's television from an adult's point of view, because adults have lost their connection to what it felt like to be not tall enough, not strong enough, not have enough skin in the game to change the rules. Let's turn it on its ear and see what happens. And what happened was, what has happened is the single most lasting, enduring, popular take on life as far as the viewing kids are concerned, still to this day. We touch them where they live. And that's the point in all of this. That's the point in taking a second look at our currency of communication. That is the point in saying, why is it always all about me? That is the point, my huge point, my lasting point, is that the most important person in the room is the audience. Without the audience, it's a rehearsal. The most important person in the room isn't me. It's the person I'm talking to, the person who can see me and hear me and value me. You are what changes my day. All I have to do is show up for you, with you, and everything is completely different like that. So as a military kid, I kind of knew this. I didn't know it. You know, when I'm 5, when I'm 7, when I'm 11, I don't know things. I'm getting into the rhythm of them without analyzing them. It's one of the things, Sir Ken Robinson, brilliant, brilliant. If you ever have an opportunity to Google Sir Ken Robinson and watch his videos on education and children and genius, he's a lovely, lovely voice in a wilderness, really. Everything he said was that children are constrained by the nature of how we have to learn to live, get along, coexist in a society. When it starts too early in a child's brain, they forget how to be flowing seamlessly, effortlessly from one thing to the next. We then, as adults, have to relearn how that works. This is the basis of this whole concept I've been working on since 2019. Pivotry in motion. A pivot is a hard turn. You can't make the turn before you think of it. Even when the doctor with that little rubber hammer goes bonk on your pressure point and your knee goes foink, your brain thought of it. The nerve reaction thought of it. Our conscious brain didn't think of it. That's why we think it's just automatic. And then there's a signal. Do that. And he goes, yes, ma'am. We have to think it before we do it. We have to feel it before we think it. So think, plan, do. No. Feel, think, plan, do. It has to come from in here, whether it's survival, thrival, walking it this way, spiking the ball, whatever level of feeling it is, it has to start there. It always starts there. This is how we are. This is how everything is. So all that ramble is the precursor to say, let's talk about a big mistake we all make without realizing it. And then let's fix it. Because, by the way, we can. So there's a fabulous song called If I Had $1 Million. Google it. It's fun. I'd buy you a house. I'd buy you a dress. Not a green dress. That's cruel. I'd buy you this. I'd buy you that if I had $1 million. The predicate, the preempt on the song is that everybody listening to it knows what $1 million is. The assumption is that everybody knows what $1 million represents. But if you were from a country where there were no dollars and $1 million didn't matter, good morning. And in dance, you actually have to step forward first before you're, but yes, and good morning, Miss Marnie. You actually have to lean in. You have to get off the heel of your foot onto the ball of your first foot, right? Absolutely. How are you, beauty? So if I didn't know what $1 million was, and tragically, I do know what it is. It's not in the immediate moment right here in my physical presence. It's on its way. I have every confidence. It's on its way. If I didn't know what $1 million was, the song makes no sense. If I didn't know what a dollar was, the song would make no sense. If I didn't know what in for a penny, in for a pound meant, because I didn't understand British currency, I wouldn't know what that meant. We have these sayings, these cliches that are based on an assumption that we all understand the currency that we use every day. So I said on the weekend, because everything was upside down and different, I said, I'm going to talk about the currency of communication. I'm going to talk about the different currencies. I'm going to talk about how we get off on the wrong foot, Miss Marnie. You see how you winkle your way into my brain. How we get off on the wrong foot is assuming that everybody sees it from our point of view, because we only got this point of view. Even if we go over here, it's still this point of view. We forget that there's somebody else over there with that point of view. So if you were a country, I said, what would your currency be? Forget country. If you are an artist, what is your currency? You're going to talk to me about the kind of brushes you use. You're going to talk to me about the kind of paint. You're going to talk to me about the kind of techniques. If you're an engineer, you're going to talk to me about building a bridge, a foundation, a structure. If you are a soldier, or you are a doctor, or you are a teacher, or you are a guy who fixes cars or paves roads, are you going to talk to me in that language? Of course you are. That is your currency of communication. Now, there's another level of this currency issue that gets inside underneath and eats away at our sense of okay. And it is the value we place on having, how we have it, how we get it, what we do with it. These are softer ideas, softer intentions, and more powerful in what they do when we assume them and apply them. I was having this very, very exciting, very important, very transformative conversation with my producer yesterday. And we were talking. A pivot can take you in any new direction. Today you are very what? I can't see the rest of it. I hit it when it confounds me. I don't hit it. It confounds me when it doesn't scroll up fast enough. So my producer and I were talking about the fact that when you look at horses, and some of them are Clydesdales, and some of them are workhorses, and some of them are treasured pets, and some of them are racehorses. And I said, we have as humans, we have a tendency to assume that animals and things have human personalities. I often say that there are times I walk into the kitchen and I get the feeling that the toaster and the microwave have been talking about me behind my back, and it hasn't been complimentary. I just get that feeling. And so I said to his comment that some of the things he does annoy people in ways that make no sense to him. And I said, "Oh, darling, welcome to my world." And I said, it's not that they annoy, it's that they confuse. It is when I do a live event, I keep saying to people, you just have to come to one of my live events. The minute you've come to one of my live events and you just stand there for a minute, you say, everything makes sense now. I see what she does. I see what she's doing. I see the outcome. Now I get it. It's very difficult to explain otherwise. What I do is I say, come in. And the minute they come in, not you, if you just heard the drill, don't come in. The minute they come in, the show is about them. The moment is about them. They are assigned a feathered boa of their color and choice. We have 3 paparazzi who are taking their pictures. We laugh and we talk about the craziest things. And then we make fun of the whole fame business. And then I thank them for coming. And they say, "Oh my God, amazing." And then they walk away. And when I follow them later, not follow them like I'm following them, but when I walk through the event and I see the other booths and the other vendors, and I see a very typical, this is the store, this is my storefront, I'm on the inside staring at the world is walking by. There is a barrier between the two that has to be breached by someone, and no one is telling anyone how that's done. We all assume it just happens by itself. No, things don't happen. People happen things, is how that works. And so what I do is I take away that barrier. There is no front. It's open access. And so if the current moves you this way, you swim on in. When I go up to these booths and I say, "Can I come in around behind you and can we get a picture?" They're completely discombobulated. They can't imagine anybody wanting to do that. Yeah, sure. Why? Well, because I want to get to know you and figure out what the world looks like from your point of view. And they look at me and they look at each other and they say, "Oh, okay." And then we do. And I walk away and we have all these great pictures. What I have done is I have shaken up their reality a little bit by saying, look what happens when we turn it. See how that works. Come on to my booth when you've got a minute. Let me show you how. And when that happens, people discover that that thing they didn't understand, that as a workhorse, that racehorse that keeps running so fast, what is the matter with you? Why can't you stand still? Says the workhorse. Well, when the workhorse goes for a jog with that racehorse and smells the different smells and feels the air, looks at the racehorse and says, I get it. And the racehorse says, welcome to my world. We can't see the world from different eyes unless we go there, unless we're willing to give it a try. So my producer and I yesterday talking about recent events in our shared experience, and he was saying, because it was his first time doing an event with me like that, he said, the whole day I watched a lot of people doing what they do and then reaching you, and standing there blinking. And I said, yeah. And if they don't run in terror, they're probably going to come inside. Either way, they're going to shift. They're going to experience a change in their feeling about normal that they didn't even know existed. So what is the currency? Is the currency same old, same old? Is the currency people like us do things like this? Well, when you say do it like this, is that before the internet or now? Because how you do it now is not how you did it before the internet. That's not what I meant. What do you mean? People like us have always assumed, and people like us have always assumed. Does that mean we're different in those small areas? Yes. Yes. Well, then let's go find the ones that are the same. Let's dial back from the differences. You know, I'm an alligator and you're a duck. Let's dial back from those differences, because if we don't, the duck is going to be the alligator's lunch. Let's dial back. Let's find common ground. If it's cold and we don't like the cold, we're all going to seek shelter. If we're hungry and there hasn't been enough food, we're all going to seek nourishment. If it's scary and things are changing, we're all going to seek connection. Let's find the common currency. And from the common currency, let's establish value. So in this further conversation, because my producer and I are looking at this really interesting way to approach celebration, recognition, connection, engagement, transformation. We're looking at a different way to do it that is easier, simpler, less complicated, less expensive, more fun. Let's try that. How do we get those 5 things to happen? Easier, simpler, less complicated, less expensive, more fun. How do we do that? We take away everything, like Michelangelo and his sculpting. We take away everything with a chisel that doesn't look like the end game. Is that interesting? Yes. Is it relevant? No. Oop, gone. Let's look at what matters. Why do people hold an event? Why do people have a party? Why do people go? What does it mean when a restaurant or a bar or a store or a hotel or a destination of some kind says happy hour, blah, blah date, blah, blah time? What do we say in our heads when we see the phrase happy hour? Do we want to go there? Do we want to know when it is? Do we want to know where it is? Do we want to know if we need to wear pants? Yeah, wear pants. Just as a general rule, wear pants. Okay. Shoes? Maybe, probably. Is it February? Definitely. What does it mean when that looks like fun? Does it mean we want to go? Does it mean we want to get into it? Does it mean we just want to be close enough to enjoy it from the sidelines? It's my job to find out what you want, why you want it, and what you're willing to do to have it. That's my job, is to find that out. It's my job to then apply your values to it so that you say, oh, look, you want to go? Yeah. It's my job to figure that out. It's not my job to say, we're doing this and you need to come. That feels like work. That feels like punishment. That feels like school. It's my job to say, what do you think? Are you in? It's my job to say, see that? That's my boat. I was born in that boat. I didn't build it. I found myself in it. So I'm claiming it. I planted a flag carefully so I didn't poke a hole in the bottom and sink. It's my boat. Want in? Want a seat? What's your superpower? Which side do you want? Window or aisle seat? Are you ready to row? That's my job. Your job, if you say yes, is to then follow through, is to give me your terms, give me your conditions, give me your willingness, define it for me so I understand. Don't make it all my job. If we talk together and we can't understand each other, we have to wiggle around until the gears connect. And now we can gain some momentum. It's our job. If we started it, it's our job to figure out how to get you involved, how to excite, inspire, connect with you to get you involved. What is the currency of communication in your country world? Are you a workhorse? Do you look down your nose at a racehorse? Are you the kind of horse that is a pet, that is just loved by someone? Have you paid your dues your whole life and now you are in retirement and you just get to enjoy the beautiful day? If we know what kind of horse you are, then we get to celebrate you that way. And what Gary and I were talking about yesterday, my producer Gary and I were talking about, is the cost, the wasted energy and effort, the toxic cheese doodlishness of being misunderstood, of being judged, when it's so much easier to say, how can I make that work for us? What do I have to do? What if I stand over here? Oh my gosh, look at it from this side. It's not a this, it's a that. Why can we say no more easily than yes? I'll tell you. It's because back in the day when this brain did all the work instead of just 95%, no was safer. There was more danger than safety. It assumed that everything was dangerous and that everything you had to be very cautious before you stepped ahead of it. You don't want to be the zebra with the stripes that go a different way. Everybody should conform. So in this field, in this part of the jungle, we're all zebras. And in this part of the jungle, we're all hippos. And in this part of the jungle, we're all giraffes. And circling around the edges are the lions. And behind the lions are the jackals. That's the only life we knew. Times have changed. This brain doesn't know that. For this brain, there is no language and everything is in the present tense. And there is only one tribe and only one cave. This brain is still there. We can grow and thrive if we remind ourselves and respect that and say, I need to pay attention. It is my job to pay attention and align myself and create connections, create touch points where this brain and this moment can work for me, with me, rather than against. And when Gary and I were talking yesterday, I said, at some point, you have the opportunity to say, I'm going to draw a heart-shaped line in the sand. I'm going to thank you for everything. I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to forgive me. And I'm going to love you from afar. Because our currency is not compatible. And I have work to do. And so do you. I have a life to live. And so do you. And move on. And we don't do that. We don't know that we can. And even if we did know that we can, we don't know how. And this is the purpose behind Pivotry in Motion. This is the purpose behind the new way, the new ABCAST, the new ABCAST, Vikings invented vision, the new way that we can communicate and connect and thrive and grow based on what I revealed to you through Mom and through the Care Bears. I can reveal to you now through me as well, through the military kid, through the only child, through the survivor of what the hell was that? I can show you where the steps are. I can show you where the path is. And Gary, who's the guy who likes to go hiking with his own body weight on his back, sorry, he can show you how to get in shape to do that. That's the whole point of this, is to show you that there is another way, to show you how currencies can be valued and exchanged, value for value, measure for measure, viability for viability, vision for vision. Because we have the opportunity to check in, to show up at the life exchange and say, what's the going rate? And it never occurs to us that we can do that. The business book I wrote the first time in 2006 that I then pulled because of a publisher saying, I don't need to follow the rules. And I said, okay, me neither. The premise of the business book was this: find out what they want, find out why they want it, answer the why, and give it to them. Find out what they want, find out the why behind it, answer the why, and give it to them. That's the secret of business. That's the secret of relationships. That is the secret of living in connection with each other and thriving. This is what we're doing. This is what I'm teaching. This is why I want to speak at events. This is why I want you to be involved with me, along with me, coming with me to say, oh, I hope she has that blue feather boa. I loved that. Somebody said, what do you call this? I said, boanomics. What color do you want? So I'm going to love you and leave you because we're coming on for, yes, we are. We're almost coming on for, what time is it now? Oh, it's only 10:40. I'm going to love you and leave you because there are things to do and places to go and people to see in your world and mine. And I want to leave you with something for Thursday because we're going to move around to the other side of this today conversation to look at something else. Because we are now, every time when I post the announcement for this, I say, we're closing in on something big and we want you involved. The days coming up to September when everybody says, all right, now then, where were we, are getting shorter. And I am readying. Gary is readying. Gary Raish is readying. Ellen Bond is readying. Josh is readying us to get ourselves in position. As Marnie said, the first thing you have to do in order to pivot is change where your balance is, to ready yourself in here, before you can actually move. This is where we are right now. And I want you with me. I want you with me if you're a speakers bureau. I want you with me if you're an event planner. I want you with me if you are a person who belongs to a group, an entity, or an organization, a neighborhood, a community, a club, a family unit. I want you saying to me, can you do this for us? And give me the chance to say, let's figure it out. Let's make it happen. Let's allow me to help you navigate your way into position. Let's do that together. That's the plan, kids. There's no secrets. What is the currency of communication? What do you value? What is it worth? How can we come to an understanding to make it work for us both? A long time ago, I did a video, and the theme was stop giraffing your hippo. And somebody said, what is wrong with you? But the longer you think about it, you say, oh, got it. So with that said, as I close today, the way I always do, I want to remind you of two things. I want to remind you that you deserve to be good to you. You're worth it. You have value. Without you, it's a rehearsal. Without you, there is no video. There is no value. There is no fabulous. There is no happy hour. And remember to hug your loved ones, because they deserve it too. Thank you for watching. Thank you for telling your friends. Thank you for getting curious and excited. Thank you. He says you're very good medicine. Thank you, beauty. I try. Good morning, Rhea. Good morning. So late as you're not late, me late, as I'm getting ready to say goodbye. But we know that this is a full circle thing and that I'll be back. So for the rest of you who haven't commented, thank you for watching. You mean everything, because it's all about you. All right? And I will catch you next time.